Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
Slim.
All right, everyone. About 1 minute. We'll get started here. So. Plenty of seats up front. I think we're ready.
I think we're good.
Ready to go? Okay, everyone. Thank you. This is the last session of the day. Thank you for everybody that's here. It means you're really interested, and we're going to make sure we give you the most information possible out of this session. My name is Rodney Grilly. I'm a senior IT transformation consultant with Amazon Web Services. And today we're going to be talking about AWS migration planning. And it's my pleasure to also introduce and let him talk about himself, Lawrence from Racimi.
Thanks, Rodney. Thanks for everybody coming. I know it's the end of the day. Some of you guys are local, and you're waiting for traffic to die down, and this seemed like a good place to do that. I have seen a lot of the presentations, and we've been partners with AWS since 2007. And even back then, we were talking about migration strategy. It was application migrations. Today, it's data center migrations. And it's progressed quickly into multi-data center. And it's a big business, and Racimi's proud to be AWS's global leading partner for Amazon migrations. And so we're going to talk to you around data center migrations, which means the discovery, the planning phases, the actual migration, and all the detail. And from knowing the slides and everything that's been put together and knowing the best practices that came to it, I'd really recommend downloading the slides and studying them, because if you're here, you're trying to figure out how to do a big project or even a reasonably small project. These slides will guide you all the way through. And so we're going to talk a lot about it. And so back to you, Rodney. Thank you.
Yes, thanks. Okay, so show of hands. How many people are in the middle of or are at least planning a migration right now, a significant migration for your organization? Okay, very interesting, very good. And how many of those people are, how many of your plans are a year long, 3 years long, 5 years long? Are they long? Year, 2, 3, 4? Okay. One of the things we're going to talk about today is really the shrinking window and the shrinking amount of time it takes to actually execute migrations. But overall, we're going to cover some methods and frameworks that we've come up with as part of AWS Professional Services, our solution architects, as well as working with our partners. Then we're going to look at what we talk about around the migration bubble and how you can quantify what it's going to cost you to actually migrate and transform your organization. Then we're going to cover AWS migration planning and execution considerations. We'll also talk about Racimi and other partner solutions that will help you accelerate those. Building migration plan and then lessons learned. So first, let's cover the cloud adoption framework. Cloud adoption is more than just technology. It is definitely not about architects moving workloads into AWS. It's about transforming your IT operating model. How do you change the way you do business today? How do you change the way you work with your business if you're an IT-centric organization? And so we have here a bunch of questions. Why is one of the biggest questions that people miss when we go in and talk with organizations? Because they don't truly understand, or maybe your executives understand why you're doing something, but it's not being communicated well. And so people in the mid-level organization and the people on the ground doing all the work actually don't have that guidance and insights to ensure that decisions they make on a day-by-day basis are directly aligned with the overall goals of the organization. So next, cloud adoption is a journey. It requires planning and an adoption roadmap. Cloud adoption strategy should be aligned closely with your business goals and objectives. We're going to talk about that more. It can be very disruptive and will drive significant change to your organization. So again, show of hands. How many people are worried about or feel that there's going to be significant challenges with their companies migrating or their organizations migrating? Is there some concerns? A little unease? We always talk about people being really not well suited to change. How many people here love change and you wish your job changed every day? Come on. Yeah, there we are. There we are. Okay. But we know that with the amount of change going on, especially through transformation, it's something that you need to consider all your staff and how it's affecting them. So we'll cover a little bit of that as well. Let's start small, learn, iterate, and accelerate. And value can be achieved very quickly. So the other thing that we learned, and maybe back in 2010 or 11, when you were doing transformations, you were maybe doing more waterfall-based approach. I'm going to come up with a really solid strategy, and then I'm going to build my roadmap, and then I'm going to get funding, and then I'm going to start executing. And you're 6 months, 9 months, a year down the road, you haven't shown value. All of a sudden, you get some shifts in management, and you lose your funding, and you didn't achieve a lot. So our focus, both from working with customers over the last few years, as well as just seeing how the trends are changing, is on a much more agile approach. And so what's some of the success factors in the journey? First, gaining that executive sponsorship. One of the hardest things is to work in the middle and try to push change up in an organization, especially when that change is process-oriented and organizational. Cloud-first strategy is always key. Cloud-first doesn't mean Amazon first. It means shifting your model to sourcing your capabilities through higher-level sourcing models. Experimenting. How many people spend 3 to 6 months to roll out a brand new project and had major issues when the project launched? And how many times did you not do a lot of experimentation? Or I should ask, give me a show of hands of people that are actually building in experimentation into your product development and releases. We have a lot of people doing experimentation, right? How do you learn? We're going to talk a lot about learning, how you learn, and based on that validated learning, how you move forward and grow. Principles and standards. Your cloud center of excellence, how do you build that new team to start that change and start to transform your organization? Organizational change, as we said. The last presentation, Emil was talking about the 2 pizza teams at Amazon. It's a significant shift. You're shifting from command and control-based organizations to a mission command model where you have these autonomous teams that can innovate and grow and can do things much more quickly because they don't have to go back and forth up and down the chain of command. And then an adoption roadmap. So I'm going to call out quickly the cloud adoption framework. How many people have read or at least know about the cloud adoption framework, or AWS cloud adoption framework? Yeah, it's a bit to read it all. What I'll tell you, though, is there's some key takeaways from it. I typically use our cloud adoption framework as a way of validating what I'm doing today. How do I take my plan? How do I validate that I'm asking the right questions and addressing the right concerns so my plan is actually complete and I'm driving down risk in executing it? And what you see here is, hey, maybe this looks very similar. This is just like a graphic of some of the activities in the model. But when you look at this, how long do you think it takes to go from left to right, from strategy to run? In a lot of organizations, it might take 6 months, 9 months, a year. We actually go in and help customers, and we work with our partners to help customers, and we can actually iterate through this type of model in anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks. Because it's iterative. It's an iterative approach. You need to make sure you're defining your strategy. You need to come up with an initial plan, and then you need to start doing experiments and really running workloads through it in order to get validation and learn. And there's so many customers that we meet with, and we actually will go in one day and talk about a workload. We'll actually the next day deploy it, run it on AWS, even some portion of it, even if you can't run the whole thing. And the amount of learning they get from that interaction alone changes the way they think about some of the strategy and portfolio and the other aspects. And that's why it's so important to go through this and iterate it very quickly. We also have a very high-level AWS cloud migration process. So you can see here there's a number of things pointed out. As Lawrence said, I'm not going to read everything on these slides, but there's a lot to them. And it is when you look at migrations in general and the conversations around the migration, and then you look at that as a subset of an IT transformation where you're really changing your organization, there's a lot to it. It's not something you can do in an hour. But we're going to try to call out as much as possible, and then definitely if you have follow-ups and questions, you can reach out to us. You can work with your partners, because that's what we're here for, to help you get through these and learn from lessons that others have already gone through. So with this, there's three main areas. There's the initiate phase where you're doing your discovery and goals and drivers. There's a migration factory where there's a set of tasks that you have to run every workload through. And then after you've migrated it, you're not done. Because most likely you're going to migrate it because you have some driver. It might be a time driver or a different type of driver, but it's still not optimized. You're not done, and it's not crossing the finish line. It's only getting it to the point where you can now start optimizing and improving over time. So now, I'll talk quickly about the migration bubble. So migrations are a cost. You have to invest money to migrate. So if you do what you do today, most organizations say, hey, it's working fine, it's not too bad, I'm not paying too much. If they actually want to make change, they actually have to go in and invest some money. So we talk about, so what's the different components of a migration and a bubble, like planning and assessment. There's some migration tools. You might be bringing in consulting partners to help because you can't do it on your own. How are you going to train people? Are you going to have duplicate environments? Do you have leasing penalties? We have a lot of customers now that have data centers that they just want to get out of, or they have co-locations that they have a deadline, and now their driver is, it's not, hey, I want to have a migration and out of my data center in 2 years. It's, I have 6 months to get out of a data center. Or one that Lawrence and I worked on last year was with CSRA. They're actually presenting right now in another room. CSC, now CSRA, came to us last year, and 90 days before an SEC deadline to split into two companies, they said, hey, we actually have to clone our whole business because the existing infrastructure is staying with the commercial, and we need to clone all that and deploy it in AWS GovCloud. And that's HR, payroll, finance, SAP systems. It's their business. It's a global organization. And both with Racimi, with AWS Professional Services, and a lot of help from our SAs and everybody else, they were actually able to, in less than 90 days, successfully execute a mass migration. So it's, when there's the right business driver, things can get done. And so it's just something to think about. We aren't talking about 2, 3 year, 4 year roadmaps anymore. When needed, you can complete them much more quickly. So what's the migration bubble look like? There's planning on the left, there's costs, there's time across the bottom. You have a migration bubble that has that discovery and assessment, duplicate environments, staffing, everything else. And then once you get past all that work, you actually get to the operate and optimize. So I was with a customer 2 weeks ago, and they were talking about a data center that they had to move in 2 years. And as we were having a conversation about this data center move, and also they wanted to start moving workloads into AWS. And so I asked, well, you already have a budget for your data center move, right? That's 2 years from now. How many people have moved data centers? How many people love moving data centers and wish you could do it every day? Yay! Well, some people definitely. Well, I asked them how much money did they have budgeted for the next 2 years? How much time were they going to be focused on going to meetings and planning and driving down risk and doing all this work? And I said, what if you just in the next 3 to 6 months you could move that and be done with it and not have to deal with it? And that would free you up to actually focus. And what if you could actually spend less money than you have budgeted today to do that? Would you do that? And what do you think their answer was? They're like, definitely if they could. They wanted to know more. They wanted to understand. Because right now, the premise is everybody thinks that it takes a long time and it costs a lot of money and there's lots of risk. And what we're telling you, and as we've worked with our customers, it doesn't take that long as you think. the risk definitely can be driven down to where it's less risk than trying to do a major data center move. And you should really start to think about it now rather than dragging it on. What do you do when you shrink the time? What do you do when you drop the cost? Your bubble's shrinking. The amount of money you're investing is much smaller to allow you to do what? Move on and start focusing on things the business is asking for rather than moving data centers. There's no big value to the business for that. So, with that, what kind of application migration challenges are customers seeing? So we just pulled up a couple. All these are driving cost. They're taking longer time to actually deliver value. And for many customers, it's driving inaction. So lack of accurate discovery tools and processes. Again, Lawrence will talk about what we can do with the Racimi tools as well as other tools. And maybe you actually might want to talk on that just for a minute, just around using tools for discovery, using tools for helping to address these challenges.
Sure. Thanks, Rodney. So again, I don't even know if I introduced what we do. So Racimi is the market-leading solution for cloud migration. We make the software that migrates your servers, your applications into the cloud. We're a global AWS partner. We've migrated more servers with AWS than anyone else. And we've partnered with the largest corporations, CSCRA, Accenture, CSC, and others worldwide to enable their tools as part of the package that we provide. We also provide the global services, and we've migrated more customers worldwide than any other firm, and we subcontract out or do direct with other partners regardless of the size. It could be 2 servers or it could be thousands of servers. That's Racimi. So with that context, what I'd say is what you're seeing on the tools, and a lot of the slides will get into the various tools. I think of everybody in this audience as various types of leaders. You're either a program or project manager leading it, you're either the sponsor, sponsoring and funding the project, or you're some sort of chief architect. Regardless, you're in a leadership role. So we're going to arm you with the tools and information and the methodology for you to start to socialize it, and then you have to make a decision. Where do I start? And I think Rodney's nailed it. Unless you've got a big bang event like Larry Pryor did last year, today, let's move CSRA out in 90 days. I actually left the show and we went to his office and we started on the project that very next day. If you've got that, then let's leave the show after this and go migrate in 90 days. I'll be happy to do that. But if not, I think the best proven way is to start now and get the tools and migrate some servers the very next day. Because in all of your organizations, you have the same problem of fear. I mean, describe migrating a data center. I sat there and I did raise my hand. I wish I was doing it every day. And we are doing it every day. But I went back to when I started my career 20 years ago in a multinational IT department. And someone tells me as a young project manager, you've got to migrate a data center. I would have been freaked out. And I'm sure anyone that gets hit with that project at any point, you're going to get freaked out. Well, you've got a proven methodology here to start small, learn something, use that win to get something going. And we'll keep going on that. But I don't think it's the tools as much as it's the leadership and how you lead your project that makes a difference. I think tools matter a lot in automating things and de-risking things, but focus on the process, the methodology, and your role to enable all of us to help you be successful. And I guess the takeaway is don't do it yourself on the big project to begin with. Start with some partners and let us help you.
Mm-hmm. Excellent, thanks. Okay, so now let's cover some migration planning and execution considerations. So one of the first things that you have to do, and we're kind of already touching on it already, is understand what your business drivers are. Typically when I sit down with customers, I want to know what business initiatives and what major investments they have right now. Because I don't want to start with, hey, let's come up with a plan and a budget to do some extra cloud thing over here. It's not about that. It's what major initiatives do you have underway? Are you doing data center migrations? Are you doing some type of data center consolidation? Do you have a brand new business initiative and you're just trying to get it off the ground? How can we look at those and align and in an opportunistic way start to move the organization from a transformation perspective based on the money they've already invested? It's so much easier to gain access to funds that have already been allocated and funded than try to create net new funding for an activity that there's no staff and no backing for. So how do you take these tools and, again, align them with your business? And those typically, you're going to look at these across your cost, your agility, and that timing, that significant business impact. So next, when you're going through this process, we hear a lot of customers tell us that, oh, we can host this so much more cheaply on premise. And it's like, okay, but you really need to understand what your current costs are and your total cost of operating that data center and those applications in order to make fair assessments of what that cost is versus what it would be to host it on cloud-based services. And what we see a lot is that server cost, storage cost, network cost, IT labor cost to a certain level, people have that information, and that's what they're building into their cost models. They also know kind of what some of the other administrative costs are, but on the right-hand side, what is the facilities cost? What's all that overhead, space, power, cooling? What's all the costs for the facilities and the other staffing that have to support those facilities? And what about all the staff in your finance and all the other agencies or groups that actually have to work to support and manage those contracts or associated with those data centers? You need to include those to be fair in how you're assessing it. And what we typically do and see is as we start to work with customers and look into that level of detail, and then looking into, well, hey, you actually have 2 data centers because for high availability or for your DR planning, you actually need twice the capacity. We start to see that the cost points for migrating workloads are going to be far lower. It's going to be very hard for any customer to have a price point for operation that's lower than you could host that similar capacity and capability in the cloud. And that's just, again, not just on AWS, but just in cloud-based commodity services. So what do you need to consider, though, when you're doing the cost model for the AWS side? So again, not going to read through them all, but you really have to consider what your third-party costs are going to be. What's the cost of AWS services, like Direct Connect and the other services you're using? What about labor? You actually have, if you're building new capabilities in AWS or on other cloud services, somebody has to do that work. You have to come up with new patterns. Hopefully, you need to be able to quantify that because it's definitely a cost that you need to consider. And then change management. This is all those IT operating capabilities. How are you going to extend your governance model and your operating model? How are you going to train people based on the current skills and competencies they have and what they actually need to learn? And what about service management and everything else? You're going to have to invest money. It's definitely not a net zero cost. But if you do it right and you cost it out and you build your models correctly, you can have a very clear understanding of what the cost versus the value is going to be for actually moving workloads. Another one is speed and process decisions, changing migration cost. Actually, I apologize because I got a little out of sync there. So here's that third-party cost, the AWS costs, labor and change management. So speed and process decisions, changing migration costs. Customers that slow down, that use non-automated approaches to both executing their program and their roadmap and then manually deploying and managing environments, drag on the process of migration, drag on the amount of time you need multiple deployments of the same capabilities, and ultimately drive up cost. They put more burden on your staff, and overall you're reducing your value. So it is very important to understand running an IT transformation and the underlying inside of that workload migrations. It's very important to treat that like a very well optimized and defined and executed plan and strategy. You have to do that in order to drive down costs. And one way of doing that is around understanding your staffing. So we have COEs or cloud competency centers, they call them different things. But today in your organization, I'm sure you don't have cloud capabilities, and that's the underlying understanding of how to leverage cloud services across your whole organization. How many people would say that their organization has the skills and competencies, everybody across your organization has all the skills and competencies they need to run all their major workloads in the cloud? Anybody? Raise a hands, how many people think that it's a challenge to build those skills and competencies in you and your staff in order to make yourself ready to run those workloads? Is that a challenge? Is people seeing that as a challenge? Okay. We definitely see that as a challenge. So you have to define what that operating model is going to look like, that target operating model. It's a change. It's a transformation. It's a different way of running IT and running your business. Then you also have to, as I said, define the skills and competencies. And then you have to build training and education programs for your staff so they can go from what they know today and in a way learn what they need to in a safe environment where it's okay to fail, where they can learn and build on it and be excited about it versus going, oh no, if I don't do this correctly, I'm going to lose my job. That fear of losing something or being left behind is in a lot of people's minds. So we have to address that up front. So once you go through that, you have to assess your workloads. You have to discover what you have, and you have to be able to assess how that workload and each one of your workloads in your portfolio would work and run and be optimized in AWS. So on the left side here, you can see we have the application discovery. You have app automated discovery, you're doing interviews, you're doing some analysis of each workload, you're matching it to some patterns you have, and then you're actually going to define that disposition for every single workload in your portfolio. And until a few years ago, this was typically a very labor-intensive process.
Right.
And Lawrence, you could speak to this. You go in and you do interviews with customers. They're all busy working on other things. They don't have time.
It was, someone said, here, give you access to our CMDB. We had a questionnaire, and this we're going back 3, 4, 5 years ago. We have a questionnaire, and we've got some tools that somewhat do discovery, but it was a lot of hacking. Today, it's fully automated. We come in with our discovery tool, we lay it down, we discover all the servers that are on your network. We go through an iterative process that starts even days after we install it. Start to discover the application dependencies, the mappings. We know exactly from there, we start to size them up and frame them for prioritization to go into AWS. And then we start the migration waves right afterward. It's a very streamlined process. Night and day, just over 3 years ago, night and day difference.
Yeah, definitely. And that's where we're seeing when we go into customers. And from a professional services perspective at AWS, we're going in and trying to promote these types of discovery tools because we don't want you to pay humans, even if we're consultants, to go in and do manual discovery or do manual analysis when tools can do it so much more efficiently and more cost effectively. So you need to be considering these things because if you have more than 150 servers, most likely the price point is going to be lower to use automation to capture all this, and then you have the analytics you need to then do a much more efficient portfolio assessment.
And I think if you think about your projects and what you're trying to do, I would say 25 to 50% of you are trying to just get buy-in to consider the cloud, and it's not the whole project, but you're getting from your most high-level sponsor that's going to fund the project, I don't even know what I have, and you want a data-driven approach to it. You want to just talk about cloud. You want to come in and do it. So fund a discovery project. It's going to be probably 10% of the overall project. Carve out that little bit of a budget, do discovery, sit down, have a conversation with your sponsor. It's very data-driven, and then they can buy in and say, okay, now I can fund the whole project because you gave me the data from the bottom up across the network, all the application affinities. It's our preferred method unless someone's already got funding for the big project.
Excellent. So when you're defining how you're going to assess your workloads, you always want to step back for a minute and first understand. Remember the first slide I put up earlier and the question why, and I said customers skip the why sometimes, or they don't really focus on it. You really have to understand, and especially when you're taking on a major transformation. It says here, setting a strategic vision is critical to any transformation initiative. It inspires and unifies the entire organization while providing a clear target state to guide their day-to-day activities. Again, this is shifting from command and control to mission command-based organization. You need to publish things widely. You need people to be able to understand what they're being asked to do and what the long-term goals for the organization are. And then every day and every meeting they're in, hopefully they're going to make better decisions to ensure they're aligned with that mission and vision and strategy that you have defined. It's something as simple as publishing it on your internal wiki. Now tomorrow I'm covering using agile approaches to accelerating mass migrations, and we're going to be talking about automating the entire transformation process using tools. And it really does make a difference, even though it seems simple, little activities like this. So in this case, modernizing the workforce. You want your staff to understand that you're not trying to replace them. You're trying to help them develop their careers and give them a way of growing and focusing on higher value activities. It's not about replacement, it's about enablement. Improving IT agility through the development of cloud-based services and hosting capabilities. Transforming the organization into a leader in delivering solutions. These are things that people can get their heads around. These help motivate them. Based on that, you need to define a strategy, and you need to write it and publish it. You need to have a strategy, and it can be simple. It can be choosing SaaS for highly commoditized business capabilities, choosing platforms when there's not a suitable SaaS solution, and then choosing infrastructure as a service for all those other workloads or COTS products that just run on infrastructure as a service to then drive these desired outcomes. And once you have a strategy, then you need some type of model, because you want to be able to use business rules to assess your portfolio so you can do it more accurately and more consistently, whether you're doing it or a partner's doing it or AWS is doing it. You want to be able to take this and turn it into something that you can automate, as well as gain high quality and consistency from the output. So in here, we're looking on the left about capabilities. I want my virtual desktop. I want a CRM. I want an enterprise resource planning capability. And we don't get a bunch of architects and technical people in the room. We're talking about business capabilities right now. And then from business capabilities, you need to answer two sourcing questions. You need to answer who should manage the business ops. And once you answer that, who should manage the technical operations? And as you can see following these arrows, not every box is connected to every box. So once you go down certain paths, there's decisions that have been made. If you're using a managed service provider, you don't care as much about their technical patterns that they're using. You care more about the legal and contractual agreements that you have with them. This gives you guidance and focus, and it keeps technologists from jumping in and driving what should be business decisions. So it's very important to build this before you actually assess your portfolio. Once you have this, there's two more things you have to do. You have to define your sourcing value and inputs. So you have a little bit of qualitative and a little bit of quantitative analysis here. So you define and refine your assessment criteria, like level of differentiation, complexity, skills and competencies. You do some weighting. You define your inputs. Everything is something that you can build and automate into a model. And then you also have defining your hosting values and inputs. So now how am I going to make decisions about my hosting? Am I going to use infrastructure as a service versus platform versus other? And those are typically around technical architecture, commodity versus specialty. Each customer changes maybe 20% of these that we go in and help. But in the end, they have a model that can be executed. It could be handed to a partner. It could be handed to somebody else. And you're going to have consistency in the delivery. And once that's done, you start running your workloads through it. So I have here just a quick sample of a workload. So now you start to have some analysis that you've done, some composite classification. You have some recommendations. And then you have a little bit of a SWOT. We usually come up with 2 to 3 different options. There's so many ways of deploying things, and there's so many different services out there, cloud services. Customers have been telling us that they just get overwhelmed. Don't tell me about 20 ways of doing it. Tell me what you think are the 2 best. And using these types of models are going to help you define what is best for your organization and maybe what's the top 2. So AWS over the last few years has created a large number of services because our customers more and more are migrating their workloads. So what I've pulled up here is just a few of the services. The first one's our application discovery service. So this is a service announced last year. It helps you discover on-premise applications and inventory and dependencies. It also simplifies your application migration planning processes. Right now this is an agent-based service. And like all of our services, we do minimum viable products. We're following lean product development techniques. So all these services are definitely functional, but depending on the size of operation you have, we have these services, plus our partners have a full complement of services to help as well. We have our VM import export. How do I take that machine that I'm running on my vSphere infrastructure today and just move it over to AWS? I want to do this quickly. Again, we do these types of experiments all the time with customers. They want to see how their SharePoint dev server is going to run in AWS. And if they have vCenter today, they take the management portal for vCenter, here the 3rd item, and they can literally themselves just move that over. Now, it's somewhat streamlined and it works great, but then we have other tools when we're trying to do massive amounts of servers, moving them. We also have database migration services. How do you move that database over? Do you want to stick with your same database engine, Oracle or Microsoft SQL Server, or do you want to try to move to a MySQL database or Postgres database engine? So we have tools, and we're constantly developing these and enhancing them to help with these types of migrations. And imports like import-export Snowball, another one. How do you move large amounts of data? When we were doing CSC last year and CSRA, at some points we got to where we thought we might actually have to copy images of servers onto disks and ship them because we were consuming so much bandwidth because of the rate that Racimi was actually migrating the hosts and deploying them in AWS. Luckily, that was a contingency plan. We didn't have to execute it because Snowball wasn't out yet. Now there's Snowball. It's a nice little device. You connect it. You can put up to 80 terabytes of data per device. It's encrypted at rest on the device. You ship it in, and we're having customers moving petabytes of data now using these Snowball devices. And then we have a very large number of partner discovery and automated migration tools. So now I'm going to hand it back over to Lawrence again. He can talk about these and then go through the next few as well.
Thanks. Appreciate it, Rodney.
No worries.
So I'm going to test this. And why don't you do that?
Yeah.
With teamwork?
Yeah.
Okay. So, so look, I know that this is feeling like calculus in 45 minutes. I get it. So we've got some tools, discovery and planning, so risk networks. We've standardized on risk networks globally. We've tried the other products. I would say that risk is our preferred solution. I don't know if any of the risk folks are in the room. Raise your hand. No? Okay, so they're around here. They've got a booth. They can help with discovery. Someone with risk in the back. Can't see who it is. Looks like a plane is about to land on top of you. But all of the tools are out there trying to help you discover what's in your data center. Workload mobility, you see Racimi out there, Cloud Endure, ATA data, some other tools. Cloud Endure is coming from a DR background. They don't necessarily build for migration, but that's where they're coming from, so they're trying to get into this space. ATA data, they're coming from a solution that they had built, and they're trying to introduce it into this market. I'd say it's fairly new. And then application profiling, that's something that you should consider as well. But I want to get back to calculus and kind of get to, if we can go to the next slide, you know, from a Racimi standpoint, I think we hit this in introduction. We make software. We provide everything from discovery to actual migration. We provide the professional services and the toolings that you need, okay? You can get everything here. But I'm most concerned about you and what you walk away from this. I want tomorrow or this afternoon or at dinner or when you get back to work, you feel like you've actually got a place to start, because calculus in 45 minutes is not going to get it. That just means more calculus class when you get back, and at least you're headed in the right direction. So what I did was, where Rodney was really cool, he put all of his slides together and the lesson learns that follow. I did the same by myself, and they have a very common theme. So if we can pull up that next slide. Sure. Again, you're leaders in your organization, and that's why you're here. You're either the sponsor funding the project, or you're the project manager, program manager leading the project, key influencer, or you're the architect leading it, okay? And these are the principles that I have seen all over the world make projects successful or make them fail. And any failure in any of these principles will have a cascading effect, and any success in it will have an exponential benefit for you driving a successful project. So the first one, gain support, execute small wins. Again, I mean, with our software, you can migrate a server right here in this room and copy it, clone it, and have it into AWS. That can really happen. So you can get some sponsorship, start waving a flag. You can get 10 servers, 50 servers, I always say pick a set of servers or applications that no one's going to get fired for. Pick those out, migrate them in, clone them. You're not cutting them over, just clone them into AWS. And then you can go around to all your naysayers and say, see, it didn't crash, it didn't break, nobody stole our data, it's okay, it's secure, and it actually works. All right, so get some wins, build momentum. So the other thing is start now. Don't overthink it. Yes, it's a little bit of calculus, but there's folks like us that can help. So I think jump to the next one, earn credibility and use industry experts. So for example, if you call us or CSRA or one of the partners, they're going to start to give you instant credibility. So, you have a budget, you have funding. Even if you don't, we do that for free anyway. It's called the sales cycle. So let us talk to your bosses. Let us talk to your naysayers and your other constituents. Get them to buy in with you and gain momentum. Leverage us. Take advantage of us. I mean, that's what we're here for. Trying to figure this out by yourself, it's just going to slow things down. And absolutely, if you're going to do your first project, use us. If we fail, you get to blame us. You keep your job, right? I mean, it's just common sense stuff, but don't try and do it yourself the first time. Ensure success. Use proven methods. Whether it's the methodologies that Rodney is coming and created by AWS, or ours, that are intertwined together, use a proven methodology. I mean, think back to Rodney's point earlier. Do one project, it's hard. Do two, it's hard. Do three, it's still hard. You're learning, but I mean, go to someone like Racimi that's done 50, 60, 100 migrations. We migrated over 20,000 softwares, 20,000 servers last year with our software. I mean, we know how to do this. So don't fail, borrow us, and do it. If you want to do it with yourself later, great, do more. But the first one, blame us, use us, leverage our methodologies. You're going to get a better success all the way around. Lead the project. And the biggest thing I see in your roles, whether it's technology or business or strategy, people overthink it. Make a decision. Lay out the strategy, set a timeline, and do it. The smaller, the quicker, but make a decision, be decisive. As leaders, if you're not decisive, you can consider your project's going to run slow and run into issues. And the last thing, share the success. I mean, you hear a year later, the CSCRA project, the CSC divestiture, that's a big success. It's one of the biggest migrations for GovCloud, very successful. Do the same. Get on re:Invent, talk about your project, write blogs around it, and share the wealth for the rest of the people on your project. Even the small ones, it will gain momentum and help your organization adopt cloud. So those were the takeaways I wanted to leave you with and some principles to think about.
Okay. Do you want to cover this?
Oh, yeah. Okay, how to get you started. So we like to remove friction too. All right, so we came up with, Teresa Carlson announced this last year at the keynote. She's re-upped it for this year where we partner with them for no-cost services. So our software is not free of charge. It has a price tag on it, but working with AWS, you can use it at no cost. The second thing is, for some of you, your projects may qualify for free global services. So what that means is the actual labor and professional services to do your discovery and dependency mapping up to an entire data center, no matter how big, and actual migration of, I don't know if it's 50 or 100 servers, but actual migration of pilot project. So if you want to jump on that, it is limited. We're announcing it at the show here, but if you're interested, Mark Tim, our head of sales, there's Mark right there doing his job. So see him if you're interested, see me. We're happy to get you started on that. And then penny migrations and marketplace. Let's say you want to just download it and migrate some servers on your own. We've dropped the price in the marketplace down to a penny to use our server for every server migrated in. Again, removing friction, trying to make it easy for you. Thank you.
Cool. Hey, no worries. Okay. So once you've done that, then you have to build the plan. And I talked about the plan, and tomorrow, in my session tomorrow, I'm going to go into a lot more detail about the plan. But at least let's look again at what we talked about earlier. You already have a cloud migration process, and it helps you define a plan. We have things you can download, or we'll give them to you so you can load those into different project management tools to get you started. Based on this, you also want to consider including migration readiness activities. Things like your business assessment, financial and technical assessments, regulatory and compliance, security and contractual assessments. These are all things that you really need to think of, and this isn't on a workload by workload. Sometimes it is. You might have PCI systems or CGIS systems or other. But in general, you need to consider all these areas, and that's why following the cloud adoption framework makes you think about all these areas and answer the hard questions to ensure you are ready and you have addressed everything to drive down risk. Next, you want to be able to map out application migration activities. So here's just a quick sample of a couple weeks and what it would take and some of the work breakdown structure or high-level activities that you would have to do to prepare. Now, I know it looks a little daunting. That's a lot of boxes and everything else, but guess what? Every time you do this, you learn. You get better. You start to optimize. You start to get faster. And the key is, though, you're tracking them at this level. It's not that you're going off and doing things and sharing statuses via email. That's going to get you in trouble quickly, and you're not going to be able to learn. And when the next group comes along, they will have no data to learn from. So now they'll have to start back, and you'll be in this cycle of constantly communicating with emails. So it's very critical to get this information out there and use it. Once you have that, you can put these together into phases. So now I've looked at my portfolio, and the worst thing you could ever do is spend 3 to 6 months assessing your portfolio and then saying, I'm going to start migrating applications, in month 7, which then rolls into month 9. You want to start iteratively taking waves of applications, assessing them based on whatever your criteria is, and then start migrating them, because that's where you start to get the learning. And once you migrate one, you learn a lot. And then you don't make those same mistakes in the second app that you migrate. And then you learn more. And then you continue to optimize and understand how you use our platform and services as you're going through it. So by the time you're done, you've gone from one small team that's now been used to spawn multiple teams, which then has everybody's gotten experience. And you're going to actually be transforming your organization in the process of migrating your workloads. Very key. So in closing, what's some lessons that learned that we can share with you? So the first lesson is early planning, communication, and buy-in is essential. You have to map out the timelines, understand and categorize your applications. You have to define your strategy and limit the variables. We've talked about all these. Next, you want to be able to understand that your personnel requirements in the cloud are really different. They're not the same. Skills and competencies are different. You need to be able to understand what your target operating model is, what the skills and competencies for all those different staff are, and then understand where they are today. It's not just sending a bunch of people to some IT courses or cloud courses. You need to understand what each one of them needs and build a custom learning plan for each one so they can evolve and be successful, so your organization can be successful. Third lesson is the burden of day jobs during migration. It is real. The longer a migration takes, the more worn down your staff are going to be. Why? Because they're doing this and they're also maintaining their existing systems. So you need to consider that. That's why all this optimization is so important. You don't want to put the burden on staff and burn them out halfway through your migration. You need to be able to understand and be sensitive to what you're asking them to do and turn this into something that they look forward to versus something that they dread.
Yeah, and I've got a comment on this
Yeah,
one.
go for
So I'll tell you, this is the one that's going to make your project success or fail if you don't have it clear the plate for them. Every time we win another project, my job is to fly out wherever in the world, meet with the executive sponsor who's not going to do anything on the project other than sponsor it. And I meet with them, we talk strategy, and I said, I've got one request. Make sure this is the #1 priority for your application owners. That's it. Nothing more. You don't have to do anything else. Us and your team will execute the project. But if the application owners can't make this dedicated, the #1 priority of the project will slide. It'll be a second, third, fourth priority, and it will fail. This is not a managed migration where we just do it for you. This is an assisted migration. There's no other way. So if you're going to hire us or one of the biggest SIs in the world, doesn't matter. We all need the app owners to be involved. If you're going to do it by yourself, that's fine. You need the app owners still to prioritize. #1 priority is the actual migration. So of everything you can take away, that's the most important thing to identify a way a project's going to succeed or failure, and it's got to come top down from your organization or your end customer's organization. They've got to make sure they commit to it. If they don't commit to it, you're asking for trouble throughout the entire project.
And this is why you align it with your current business initiatives. That way you're doing things that you're delivering, not just for the sake of cloud, but you're delivering it as part of some business deliverable or some key IT activity.
That's correct.
So next, establishing foundational cloud capabilities. Another issue that we see is customers jumping straight into migrating and not quite thinking through all the way what their strategy is for AWS region usage versus AWS accounts. How am I going to use, do I need one account, multiple accounts? What's my VPC strategy going to look like? And specifically, what about my hybrid capabilities? How do I extend my wide area network? How do I extend my DNS, my operations? How do I do all these things to ensure that when I do deploy things, maybe it's just DR. Maybe I start off with, I have workloads on-prem and I'm doing a failover to AWS. I'll tell you what happens quickly. Customers go, oh, wait a minute. I just automated everything in AWS and I couldn't do that on-prem. So then they go, well, what if I do half and half? What if I do active-active? And then all of a sudden they go, oh, well, wait, it's even cheaper, so why am I still doing these manual things? And then ultimately, half the workloads end up just going straight to AWS. And they have multiple availability zones, so they already are still meeting their DR requirements and their HA. So be ready, because you need to have this hybrid capability in place and all these foundational capabilities. The fifth lesson learned is all about building the momentum, monitoring, reporting status. Again, tomorrow I'm going to go into a lot more detail. It's very important that you track and publish very broadly what you're doing and measuring the success and the value that you're creating during it. Because if not, we have customers all the time that are a year into a roadmap execution and their board all of a sudden goes, well, what's the value? What did you do for me? And because they didn't agree on the measures and the KPIs, they then have to go into question about everything that they've done. And the last one is help is available from AWS and our partners. There's documentation, white papers, our solution architects, professional services, and our APN partners. We have trainers for all types of courses, and we have our technical account managers for people that have enterprise support. Leverage all these resources. Our account managers are there driving these conversations, bringing in the right resources as needed. Leverage the entire team in order to make yourself more successful and leverage the resources we have to bring. And the last one is key takeaways. So have a strategy and plan, like we said. Understand the components of your migration bubble, because that's really driving your cost and how long it's going to take to add value. Determine the best migration path for each app. Don't just genericize things and say, oh, well, I'm going to treat all these applications in this group like this, and I'm going to use this pattern. Because there's sometimes differences. Make sure you decompose them to the right level to ensure you drive down risk. Determine leveraging the tools, APN partners, as we said, and then go fast. Meaning, go as fast as you can. Really push yourself to go more efficiently and more quickly to actually gain value quicker. And last slide here is just resources. So there's tons of resources, but we pulled up a set there. So we are over time. But if there is any questions real quickly, any questions? People can take pictures. The slides will be available. The video will be available.
Yeah, that was my question, is about the slides.
Yeah, all the slides and the videos will be available online within the next, short amount of time. So definitely. Yeah, they'll be up on YouTube, but we'll have a lot of information about. We might be sending it out after this, but they'll definitely be available. If you have any questions at all, you can just send us an email. Was there a question?
I didn't hear that.
Was there a question? Okay. All right. Well, thanks again. Sorry for keeping you so late, but we'll meet you outside for drinks. Thanks.